According to the U.S. Geological Survey, the longest recorded earthquake lasted 10 minutes. 10 minutes non-stop. Recently in the media, people have been talking about this big earthquake that's supposed to hit California. As people who live in California, we need to be well informed and prepared for this earthquake. By learning about earthquakes here in California, we will have a better understanding of what to expect and how to be prepared. First, I will talk about what an earthquake is and what will cause this earthquake. Then I will talk about what damages this earthquake can do, and finally I will talk about what we can do to be prepared for this earthquake. So what is an earthquake? In the book Natural Hazards and Disasters, authors David and Donald Hidman state that earthquake is sudden ground shaking which is caused by a fault suddenly slipping past one another. California is third in most earthquakes in the whole US, and that is because we have one of the longest faults in the world. San Andreas Fault runs for 800 miles from Northern California to Southern California. As we all know, earthquakes are caused by molten faults. Since we have one of the longest faults, we have many earthquakes every year. However, we haven't had as many earthquakes as we should be having, and that is because the San Andreas Fault has had no movement in the past few years. According to Angelica Main, professor of geology here at Cal State Lane, she states that a big earthquake should occur every 150 years and an average size earthquake every 10 years. The last time we had a big earthquake was in 1857 with a magnitude of a 7.9, and the last average earthquake was in 1994 with a magnitude of a 6.7. The San Andreas Fault has had no movement, and because of that, there's lots of tension and stress building up on the fault. Eventually, all that stress and tension will release, and that's when the big earthquake will hit. And they say it's a big earthquake because they are predicting the fault to move the length of all those years it hasn't moved. Now that I've talked about what an earthquake is and what will cause this earthquake, let's now talk about some damages that this earthquake can do. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, some of the most common damages are fires, landslides, and broken water and sewage lines. Many houses here in California are built on top of hillsides because they like the view of the whole city, but they don't really know that most hillsides are not safe. So when a big earthquake does hit, their houses are very likely to fall. And something that's very common as well is fires. CBS Sacramento states that in the Northridge quake, there were a total of 406 fires throughout many cities, most of them being house fires. And another thing is broken water and sewage lines. Since the ground is shaking and these lines are underground, these lines are very likely to break, and there's going to be water as well here. Some of the most common damages are collapsed highways and buildings. In the Northridge quake, there were many highways that collapsed in sections, or in small sections, or in bigger sections. And buildings will fall on anything and anyone, and they are the #1 cause of death during an earthquake. People get trapped under these buildings and concrete, and they stay under there for weeks until someone comes and rescues them, and some also die. And now that I've talked about some damages, let's talk about what we can do to be prepared. An earthquake can happen at any time and anywhere, so you will need some stuff to survive. The first thing you will need is water. Water is very important because, as I mentioned earlier, the water lines and the sewage lines will break, and these waters will mix and they will contaminate our drinking water, so it's not going to be safe to be drinking water from home. So they suggest, Professor Angelica Main suggests that you have 2 gallons per person per week. Another thing that they suggest is a first aid kit, and that is because you never know when you or a family member or someone around you could get a minor injury, and having a first aid kit will help you not get that injury as bad. And food is also recommended, and they prefer canned food because it doesn't spoil as quick as regular food. You have to keep in mind that an earthquake can occur anywhere and at any time, so just have a place where you and your family can meet. It could be your grandma's house or your house, and in that house you should have a fire extinguisher because, as I mentioned earlier, in the Northridge quake, the house fires were the most common fires in that earthquake. Now that we've talked about some damages, let's wrap things up. Learning about this earthquake we should have learned about what to expect and how to be prepared. First, I talked about what an earthquake is and what will cause this earthquake. Then I talked about what damages this earthquake can do. And finally, I talked about what we can do to be prepared for this earthquake. It's not if it will happen, it's when it will happen, and they are predicting this earthquake to happen in the next 30 years. It can happen at any time and anywhere, so I hope we all stay safe and hope it's not as bad as we could see. And like Professor Jimenez says, hope for the best and prepare for the worst.